Welcome to the Snowbirds Expat Radio Podcast. I'm Gerry Scott, founder of the Snowbirds US Day Tracker and the Canada Physical Presence Tracker app. Well, hello everybody. Today we have a really interesting show. We're getting away from the tax and immigration of our podcast, and we're going to be talking about an event that's being held up in Niagara Falls. When you're from Vancouver, it's called Up in Niagara Falls. And we have one of the organizers of the tournament to put this together many years ago. He is a goaltender that played for Buffalo for many years. And I got lots of questions around Buffalo because I was a big fan of hockey back in the day. And our guest is also, he played for Buffalo, Calgary, and Toronto. So we're going to go on about Toronto and what's wrong and what's right. But today's guest is actually Don Edwards, and he's a realtor in Florida. And like I say, he's the organizer of the tournament. And Don, welcome to the show. And we have lots of questions for you.
Thank you, Gerry. It's a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to saying a few things that might disturb a few people, but also say some pleasantries that might surprise a few people.
Well, when you're out here in Vancouver, we've heard them all. So I don't think you can offend us. But anyhow, the first thing is, Don, is I know that you played in the 70s. You were drafted in 1975. You played for Buffalo many years. And of course, when I'm looking through your bio last night, I could not stop thinking about Gerbour Perreault and how we ended up with Dale Talon, the spin of the wheel, and of course, that great French Connection line. So tell me what you've been up to over the last, when you retired from hockey, what have you been up to in your life?
Well, when I retired I officially retired in '88. I sat out for a year and then I went back. And my final year, I went to a training camp in Edmonton. But by then, I was pretty beat up. My hands were sore from the old equipment we were using back then. So I packed it and I was already involved in broadcasting because back in '84, I did the Canada Cup for TSN. And then I did the 1988 Olympics for TSN in Calgary. I was working with Hockey Night in Canada and Sports Channel America. And that was great. I got my real estate license in Buffalo working for Hunt Real Estate. And then in 1991, I had a terrible tragedy in our family when my mother and father were murdered. And so those positions and the things I was loving at the time just came to an abrupt halt. So there was a complete adjustment in our lives for the next 5 years. And so between dealing with 2 court cases and dealing with the federal government on the justice system and things like that, it took me sort of in a sideways angle of life that no one ever expects, in a path that no one should ever go down. But it does happen, and it happened to us. And so I was very lucky in '95 that I'd written a goaltender critiquing manual. And I was probably the first to ever do analytics of a goaltender. And so it took me about 2 years to put it together. I was lucky enough to be hired by the LA Kings as an assistant coach when Larry Robinson was the head coach there. Spent 6 years in LA and then 4 years with Carolina. The last position I had was as general manager in Saginaw with the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL. And that year I drafted Brandon Saad as my first round pick in that draft. And that year, I think we had four of our players of that draft go on to be drafted in the NHL. So I was quite pleased with that draft, looking back on it now. But in 2008, my wife and I decided we had enough, and we decided to move to Florida. I went to work as a sales and marketing director at a private club, a Jack Nicklaus signature design golf course. Did that for 8.5 years. And then in 2015, I wanted to go back into real estate. I really enjoyed real estate. So I left the golf industry and took out my real estate license. And here I am in Florida servicing Canadians and helping them find their dream places in the South. And that's been a great treat. I really loved, doing it. And with me, it's a passion. It's not about, money. I've retired 4 times, but it's not about the passion of making money, although that is a goal, of course, of anybody. It certainly drives you. But at the same time, I'd rather put smiles on people's faces and sort of under promise and over deliver. So I work very hard. My customers, the testimonials I receive are really are kind. They appreciate what I try to do for them, and I go the extra mile.
Well, I know you and I got connected about 4 or 5 years ago when we did come up with the Snowbird US State Tracker app, and at that time I did learn about the tragedy of your parents, and I have followed the story as best as we can, and what a terrible experience to go through. So,
well, I'm writing a book on it right now, Gerry, and it's taken me time because when I'm writing it, it's quite detailed and graphic about what happened. But 6 nights before they were killed, I was with my father at the Buffalo Sabre game. We enjoyed a great evening there. I mean, it was great to see fans and friends, and as we sat there watching the game, my dad and mom gave everything they had to help me advance my career in my youth, and they gave me direction and guidance. And here 6 days later they're killed, and it made me really think about it. And it took me a long time to sort of get my thoughts together on it, because it's a tough book to write. Because after the tragedies, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I get so far into the book, I might write 2 paragraphs, a page, and then I have to take a break because, I see my symptoms that I fight, and I'll have the rest of my life. I have to take a step back, regroup, and then go at it again. So I'm getting closer. I hope to have it done in the next 6 months to a year, but it's very graphic. It tells a lot of detail about what happened, but it also tells some great stories about my playing days and the great memories I had with playing with some great players like Gilbert and the French Connection, Jim Schoenfeld, Jerry Korab, playing in Team Canada with Larry Robinson and Guy Lafleur and Wayne Gretzky and Mike Bossy, and the list goes on and on. And then the great memories of playing against the Soviets and, kicking their butt and just enjoying that. It was, those little things that you just never go away. I was so proud. I mean, I was so proud that night in Montreal. I was never expected to play a game in the 81 Canada Cup. And Mike Liut and Billy Smith were expected to play them all. And then Billy broke his finger. I'd left the team to go back home and train with the Sabres. And all of a sudden I was only home one day and they called me right back. And here in the semifinal game, I get a chance to play against the Russians. And when Rene Doucette sang that national anthem, I cried. I mean, there was tears coming down my face, and it was just such great respect for my parents and love and admiration for them, for what they gave me, and and just believing that my career would pursue hockey and make it to the National Hockey League.
Well, it's pretty exciting because my hometown is Ucluelet on Vancouver Island, and all we could do is watch Hockey Night Canada. So to be connected to so many hockey players as we are nowadays, I guess we get to live those dreams through those younger guys. But you and I have mentioned some of the guys that I know that you played against in your career, and we were fortunate to go back to Chicago and spend some time with Stan Mikita and Darcy Rhoda, and Jerry Korab was at the Chicago Alumni Tournament as well. I believe it was Jerry Korab, but some of these other guys that, when you're a kid from Ucluelet, I think my claim to fame was I could name every player in the NHL from the early 70s. So a lot of useless information stored in my head. But anyhow, it's exciting. If you didn't get to play in the league, it's always great to meet you guys, and as our roads and paths cross, it's pretty exciting. But it does lead us to that next part of what's really important and what's a lot of fun coming up. And we were supposed to do this last year and fly out to Niagara to meet you and play in the Friendship Cup. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Friendship Cup and how long it's been around for? And we know it takes a lot of work, but fill us in what the motive of the Friendship Cup and how you got involved with it.
Well, it's really interesting. In 2017, I came up with the idea of creating a senior golf tournament in Canada based on the Society of Seniors, which I am a member in the United States. There's also worldwide members as well, but it's the group of the top senior players. And there's 4 age groups to it: 55 to 64, 65 to 69, 70 to 74, and then 75 plus. So I approached a gentleman, Rick James, who is now my partner in this, and he's also a founder and co-chair of this event with me. But I approached him with the event at the Legends on the Niagara Golf Complex, which is Niagara Parks, to host it. They agreed. In 2009, we launched it. It was very successful. It was our inaugural year, but it was well received, and we expected it to grow from there. And then, unfortunately, COVID hit, and it created a situation for us that we tried to put it on the back burner to keep it going, but at the same time, the Americans weren't allowed to cross the border. There was border crossings. There was COVID issues. Everyone had to get their shots. Their inoculation. There were so many things that happened so we had to make some very tough decisions. Well, we did. So we had to postpone it in both through 2020, 2021, and 2022. And then now that the COVID restriction, the border, has been eased and the restrictions are now off. We launched it. We've, never lost our heart. We never lost our drive. We never lost our commitment and dedication to it. And here we are. And we're going to make this thing go. We've got an unbelievable environment there. The venue is fabulous. And those that have visited Niagara Falls or, maybe dreamed to see Niagara Falls, it is spectacular. There's nowhere else in Canada that I believe. There's many wonderful places throughout Canada. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Whistler and the mountains in Vancouver, and I've been, there. I've been to Vancouver Island, whatever else. But Niagara Falls, Canada is spectacular. It's every right. So we started this tournament. We called it the Friendship Cup, and it's named that for a special reason. Being born in Hamilton and then playing so many of my years in Buffalo, I was graced with the privilege of going back and forth between the two borders. And so, although I am Canadian, I'm also an American now too, because in '91, after my mother and father were killed, I went and got my U.S. citizenship. And, in 2008, my wife and I decided to live full time in the U.S. because I played in a number of years in U.S. cities, and we raised our three children in Buffalo. So the event, name of the event is really a passing of, I guess, of the blessings I received from my mother and father. And, they created a situation where I was able to get friends on both sides of the border through their dedication and giving to me, allowed me to do that. And if my parents wouldn't have done that, I would never have had the opportunity to play in the National Hockey League. So the name is really dedicated to my mother and father. It's something, that's why we call it the Friendship Cup. My mom and father were very committed to their community, and they had many great friends. They built parks. They did everything in the community for their neighbors, and even those that they didn't know. So that was really where it came from. I expressed and gave everybody in 2012 the inaugural event. I told them about my parents, and it really touched a lot of people. And I think once people get to understand what the Friendship Cup is all about, and the dedication we've gone through to make this thing a go, we're working our butts off right now, and we hope to fill the field this year. And so, if there's someone who thinks they're a pretty good golfer and would like to play against some pretty good senior amateurs over the age of 55, they can go to the Friendship Cup website and sign up, because it's a great event. It's special. We've got an amenities package, I think, that I've mailed to you that's outstanding. It took me about 2 years to put together. But, we got great rates on hotels, the low end, the high end. They're all 5-star facilities. And, for Americans coming up, they get that great U.S. exchange rate. And for the Canadians, they're committed, but they know they're coming to a first-class venue.
I've never been to Niagara Falls, so I'm pretty excited, and I might be a little intimidated depending on who shows up to play in the tournament. But, sometimes he's good and sometimes he's really bad. But I've got a couple of friends that are joining us from Toronto and Vancouver. My father-in-law, my son-in-law's father is from Hamilton as well, and I believe he's the same age as yourself. So we'll have to have a discussion and have a few beers, I'm sure, after.
We'll have lots of beers.
Oh yeah, but no, we're excited because now, Don, how many? Is it a 50-50 split? Is there as many Canadians as there is Americans?
I would say it's probably, what we experienced the first year, Gerry, was probably about 75 to 80% American, based on the rest were Canadians. But we're trying to increase the Canadian field. We've got some really outstanding Canadian players coming in the senior division. I mean, Rob Cowan, who's Gary Cowan's son is coming to play. He's already ranked as one of the top senior amateur players, and he'll be playing the lower division. Of course, I'm now 67, playing the super senior division. But we've got some great players, Jim Starnes and Duke Delcher. Jim Starnes is from Florida. Duke Delcher's from South Carolina. They're both coming into play, both excellent players, and so it's really an interesting thing. But it's not just about the competition; it's about the friendships being formed. I mean, we had guys come the first year from Montreal. They had a great time, and it doesn't matter where you are from Canada or the U.S. Coming into this event, it's going to be special because it's not just the competition; it's about the friendship and just seeing a beautiful place in the world. I mean, it's a must-see destination, and that's the only way to say about Niagara Falls.
Well, I'm sure after the first day, I might be looking for a caddy job, Don, because we've had a long-standing relationship with the PGA over in Kapalua, and all I do is just part of that crew to keep all those players comfortable and all the shots in. But I am getting a little intimidated. And I know
Jerry, we also really encourage the players that register to bring their spouse, because there's so many things to do there with all the attractions. And we have a players dinner on the first night of the tournament, the first official night of the tournament, and it's over the top. It's called the President's Dinner. It's a smorgasbord, but it's just over the top. The Niagara Parks do a fantastic job with it. The players go away, and they're greeted at the door by historic, people that have went back and showed a little bit of the history of what the battle on the Niagara was all about. The last day, we bring in a cannon. We have a cannon blast as our shotgun start. There's no tournament that does that. I mean, when you're standing there, I lit the wick at the first event in 2019, and my feet came about 2 feet off the ground when that cannon blew. And the guys were quite impressed that, hey, we really go the extra mile to give people a good time, and they won't forget it.
Well, I'm excited because, like I say, I'm a West Coast guy. I've spent most of my life here in Vancouver, and we go back and forth to Maui. So I have a little bit of a American edge to me, but I'm excited about going to Niagara Falls. It's it's going to be a lot of fun. So we look forward to seeing everybody. Okay, we have to take this opportunity and really get Don's opinion of the current Toronto Maple Leafs. Mike and I, our producer Mike, we were the last 2 weeks we've been discussing all the rights and wrongs of Toronto, and knowing that Don was going to be on the show, we probably had about 5-10 minutes before we started taping, and it was pretty funny. But anyhow, I'm going to Don, what do you think of the current Maple Leafs right now? Are they going to I mentioned that I'm going to be jumping on this Maple Leaf Canadian bus if they can get past the first round. I'd love to hear your opinion on the current structure of the Maple Leafs.
Well, I think they'll get, Jerry, I honestly think, and Mike, I think the Leafs will get through the first round this year. My biggest concern is in building any top end club that competes deep into the playoffs. I was always taught by Punch Imlach, who I got to know very well, and Scotty Bowman, who I spent countless hours with, talking strategies on management, on the definition of a top end hockey club and how you build it. Imlach really enforced, and I think it was, you look back in the days of the Montreal Canadiens and the Leafs back in the 60s. I mean, you look at those franchises, and they always had a top end goaltender and 3 to 4 solid top end defensemen, and that's the roots of what I would call the cornerstones of the house. And I'm not so sure. It's always nice to go and make some good trades, and the Leafs at the trade deadline did a lot of activity, but I'm still not convinced that they've got the cornerstones they need to win, and that is a top end goaltender. I would have loved to see them get Jonathan Quick out of Los Angeles. He's won Stanley Cups, or another goaltender that maybe had won a Stanley Cup or two, and a pair of defensemen that you could really think that would be the added cornerstones. So I think they'll get through round one. When they start getting into round 2 and 3, all of a sudden it steps up. The competition steps up another 2 or 3 steps. and this that much tougher. You start getting into, 5, 6, 7 game series. It starts to wear you down. That's where you need the depth as well. And I'm not so sure the Leafs have got it, to be truthful with you. I think they'll finish out the season on a real strong note, but at the same time, once the playoffs get going, you're looking at 16 teams and they've all sort of beefed the benches for the playoffs. I'm still not sure that they can compete with the teams like Boston and Colorado, who are two top end teams, in my opinion.
Now you look at Carolina. I mean, Carolina has done well, and I think did they beat Tampa Bay last night,
I
a
did
couple
not
nights
see.
ago?
I've been on a I was on a, I've been on a Zoom call all day, and now I'm on with you. But I didn't check the scores from last night. But Rob Moore in Carolina. I worked for that organization for 4 years. I coached him, and he's a very inspiring man, and he really gets the most out of his players, and he works as hard as any of the players on the ice, off the ice, and so I know Rob's technique. And he'll have Carolina all pumped up and ready to go. I'm still waiting to see if some of the other teams I think are on the edge of making it. Teams like the Florida Panthers with Paul Maurice. Paul is a fantastic coach. That would be another one. You can never count out the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I think there's some hidden gems in there that I think as well that may surprise some people if they make the playoffs.
Now, over the last 20 years, was there ever a time that you were kind of shocked that Toronto didn't pull it off? I mean, there was years of Dougie Gilmore, or they had Felix Potvin, who arguably could have been that type of goaltender. You think, or
No, I don't. Nothing with Toronto really surprises me, Jerry and Mike. I think it's really a situation that I remember Carolina played Toronto, in the semifinals of the year we went to the Stanley Cup Finals against Detroit. And I remember, I believe it was the semifinals or the quarterfinals, but we played them. But anyways, it was very interesting in the fact that, we didn't have the greatest team in the world, but Jimmy Rutherford had built a real good nucleus in our defensive core. And Arthur Zerbe and Kevin Weeks performed reasonably well for us to get through New Jersey and Montreal. And it's really as I mentioned, I keep referring back to the defensive core. It's not just playing a great defensive style. Is that the rule of thumb always is if you've got a goaltender and two very top elite defensemen on the ice, one goes off the ice, another elite defenseman comes on, and if you've got four of them, you've got a couple pairs of them, or if one of them gets a penalty, you still got two, and you can sort of rotate them in and out on a very short basis. And that's why when you get to playoffs, you start seeing defensemen playing 23 to 29 minutes a game because they're constantly on and off the ice. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I've thought for years that the Leafs are lacking in many positions. I think they made poor decisions with trading away draft picks that they should have retained or tried to grab more to build from the nucleus out with young players. I think Buffalo and Ottawa have done a good job. I think for the most part, that's how Colorado was built. I think Jim Rutherford in Vancouver will slowly get back to that because that's what Jimmy did in Carolina as well and in Pittsburgh. But it's an interesting thing when you start getting into those second and third round series. They're long games. You don't know if they're going to go one overtime, two overtimes, and even longer. It takes a toll on you. And I can still remember walking in the dressing room between periods and seeing players getting IVs. And we got into that third and fourth series. I mean, it just wasn't one player. We were having 4, 5, 6, 7 players getting IVs between periods just to hydrate and try and get some zip back in their game because their legs were so heavy.
well, to your point, when you talk about goaltending, is that the three runs the Canucks have had, we had Richard Brodeur, we had Kirk McLean, and of course we had Roberto. So Vancouver. Yeah. So to your point, that is so true. Now, just we touched base about this and earlier and about the tragic loss of your mom and dad, and I'd love to hear more about your book and some of the main purpose of your book coming out and how is this how is this how do we look at this as a silver lining with your book being released? So I'll let you take over from there.
Well, what people don't realize is what our family went through the trial. Let me go back here. This individual that was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He had raped and assaulted my sister and held her at knife point for over 5-6 hours 5 weeks before he killed my mom and dad. And when he went in front of the Justice of the Peace let him out on the condition he stay away from the family. Well, within days or weeks, he was already stalking my sister. And so when he killed my mother and father, when he came to my sister's home that morning, and then he hid under her front porch, and she was going to work at about 7 o'clock. She came out and saw him getting out from underneath the porch, and he had a gun. So she ran across the road. She lived right across the road from my mom and dad, and he fired shot at the side of the house. And then she got in the home, and then he followed her across, and of course, and that's when all hell broke loose, and shot my mom through a window and stabbed my father to death. My sister was lucky to escape. The gun had jammed, and she fought with George, and he slipped. This George Harding Lovey was his name. He had slipped, and my sister was able to escape out a back door while she was being assaulted. And so, we went to court. It's the first time in Canadian history that, someone that has been charged with, capital murder. It was the first time he took the stand, and when he got in front of the assistant crown attorney that was cross-examining him. He was on the stand for about half an hour. He decided to take the stand in his own defense. He'd already been through the defense's questioning, but Alexander Paparelli, who was the assistant crown attorney at the time, questioned him for about 45 minutes. We broke for lunch, and after we broke for lunch, he refused to take the stand, so he never came back to the court. It delayed the trial by 11 days. It was the first time in Canadian history that had ever happened. Judge Borkovich had to recess everyone while he got a decision from, the Supreme Court of Ontario. And of course, he had advice from Ottawa as well, from the Supreme Court of Canada. We got that settled, but then all of a sudden it brought in psychologists and you name it. They were all there starting to give their own opinion on, if he was sane to stand trial. Well, it was determined he was. He was convicted, went to Kingston, and from there he went on to Fenbrook, and which is in Gravenhurst, and from there Beaver Creek. And when he started applying for parole in 2011, we had to, we were already writing victim impact statements, and we went in front of the Parole Board of Canada, and the whole family was there, all of my sisters and brother-in-laws, and we had a couple nieces and nephews there, and some friends as well, a few friends that drove that were there to support, and also gave, their victim impact statement. But it was interesting. When we got there, we were sitting virtually feet away from him. I mean, I could have reached out with my arms and grabbed him. I mean, that's how close he was. He was facing the parole board, and we were sitting in behind him. He was not to look at us. But anyways, we got done reading our victim impact statements, which were very emotional. And then again at lunch, he did not return. So that was the second time that he walked from a responsibility we felt was needed. At no time in all the years of I think 7 parole hearings that we've been to now, at no time has he ever showed any compassion. The Parole Board of Canada and Corrections Canada allowed him to follow a program he thought was right for his rehabilitation and release. They swept a lot of things under the carpet that he didn't follow. The assessment is now still, the Parole Board says, in their rulings, he has to stay away from women. He is on day parole, as you know. And so we've went through a lot of things. We've, in our victim impact statement, have requested through the Parole Board of Canada that, he not be allowed to go and visit certain areas, which is, around the Hamilton region and various counties that, the Haldeman, Norfolk County, where my wife was from, where I played my minor hockey, the Kitchener-Waterloo area, the Kingston area, where we have family. Just different things. So the fight has been on. People don't realize what we've gone through. We've been to Ottawa twice. There was a Bill C-330 that was, I think, put in front of the government back in late 1992, 1993. It was called Bill C-330. Life means life. There was a promise that bill was put forward by the MP from Hamilton Mountain by the name of Stan Keyes. And Stan was promised, because it was a private member's bill, that it would pass. Well, I went through 2 readings without any problem. The third reading, we were in the chamber, and the odd thing about it, we expected there was only 7 people in the Parliament that night, and the first couple of people said, "Yay, no problem," and the third or fourth person was the assistant to the opposition, and stood up and said nay, and that was it. So it taught us a lot about Canadians, for the most part, about the Canadian laws and things that are going. I mean, this recent law that was, that the Supreme Court of Canada ruled on, that, they could not be convicted for life. They have to do 25 years and then they're eligible for parole. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be Paul Bernardo or Justin Bork, whoever it may be, anywhere in Canada. Justin Bork killed 3 Mounties in New Brunswick. At some point after 11, 12 years, you can already start to apply for parole. In Canada, the Canadians, for the most part, aren't aware of this, but we have experienced it all. It's hell. It's taken a toll on myself. It's taken a toll on my sisters, our families. We continue to battle. We don't battle. We're battling for ourselves, but we're also battling for all Canadians if they only wake up and realize what we're trying to do. So it's been hard. We don't give up. We continue to write. So when I decided to write the book, as I said, it took me a long time to come to grips that this is something I had to do. And now I'm motivated, I'm inspired. And now that I can see I'm getting, further into it and well into it now, that I'm going to finish this project if my health allows me to. But I'm going to finish this project, and if it is published, then I'll make my path across Canada to publish it, to promote it, and tell Canadians, and they can look at my face, they can look at my eyes, and they'll learn the story, and the book's going to tell it.
Well, when you make it to Vancouver, we've got a golf course for you, and we've got a home for your wife and yourself. So we look
I appreciate
forward
that,
to helping
Gerry.
out any way we can. But yeah, what a terrible story. It's I'm just sickened when we hear these things
Yeah.
because yeah.
Well, it was interesting. And the morning it happened, my brother-in-law, when he called me at about 5 minutes to 8, I was just getting ready to go out the door to a full day of meetings with the real estate company I was working with. Well, my entire career came to a halt for almost 4 years. And when I had to give up, real estate, which I so much love, and the broadcasting, which I so much enjoyed, my mentor was John Shannon, went on to become the head producer of Hockey Night Canada. John was the best in the industry. I think he teaches it now, but he was mentoring me and giving me great advice, and I was really enjoying it. I was working with some great broadcasters, in doing the games, and all of a sudden, here we are about 3 weeks to a month from doing, the Stanley Cup playoffs in 1991, and all of a sudden I was completely out of the loop. There was no more games. I never did. Since then, I've never, been involved or back in the broadcast booth per se to do another game. And it was something I really liked. I worked hard at it in getting to understand how the industry worked and the proper way to convey your thoughts in the course of a game, and allow the people at home to think as they watch. That all went away. So I had to turn my focus and, find something that I could really consume myself. And then I wrote the goaltending critiquing book, which by far was way before its time, the analytical side of it. And then I was very fortunate, as I said, to get hired by the LA Kings and my good friend Larry Robinson.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I'll tell you what, to wrap things up here, I look forward to seeing you in person, and I know it's interesting how people get connected, but I look forward to the friendships, which were important for your mom and dad, because we know I won't be bringing any golf with me. So I really do look forward to the friendships of all the people we meet.
Well, we encourage everyone to come and, if you're a decent player, and we encourage you to come and sign up and play. It's a very affordable event. Rick and I do this for the love of the game. We don't make any money out of it. We do it for, just our pleasure, and have fun and meet people and enjoy. Everything goes back into the event. So it's not about, that just, the cost of the event is $550 US, and everything goes back into the event, everything, 100%.
Oh, that's pretty exciting. Well, we look forward to it. Don, I really appreciate you coming on today and telling us what you've been up to, And I look forward to talking about hockey. I look forward to talking about your mom and dad. And like I say, I look forward to all the friends we're gonna be meeting on June the 23rd to the 26th, 2023. So
I look forward to sharing a beer with you and cheering you and getting to know you even more. You're already become a friend, and I look forward to welcoming you and your buddies that are coming with you. And if there's any spouses out there that want to come and join in the fun, you're more than welcome, because it's a special place.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Well, thank you very much, Don. All the best.
Thanks, Gerry. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for listening to the Snowbirds Expat Radio Podcast. Our app is available for your iPhone and your Android. If you have any questions, call me 604-612-7526. Until our next podcast, I'm Gerry Scott.